Hi, I'm Jonathan M0JSX, and the kind folks over at Retevis have sent over their brand new Retevis Alance H1 for review. Thank you up front to Retevis for sending this over. I've had the radio now for a few weeks, so this video is really going to be my experiences with the radio, what I like, what I don't like, and where I think this radio could be improved. And also a brief description on the programming of this radio as well. Starting off with the radio itself, this is, I have to say, quite nice. I was speaking with a couple of other ham YouTubers who have also been sent one of these. One of them is Matt over at Tech Minds, who's already published his review of this radio, and I'll link that up there. But what we were sort of all saying is we really like the fact that there is no obvious branding on this radio. It doesn't scream Retevis, it doesn't scream Alance. It's very unassuming, and I quite like that, to be honest with you. It's really quite unassuming. The screen, and this is in its sort of night mode, I think they call it, is really clear and easy to see. And the viewing angles, yeah, they're okay. I mean, it's obviously an LCD panel behind sort of a plastic front, and I've still got the installed screen protector on from when it came out the box, which may or may not aid things, but yeah, you can tell that the viewing angles, once you get really off axis, it's a little bit difficult to see. There's a full number pad with some buttons. Up top, there's a couple of knobs. One is for a channel selector, one's for a volume knob. What I really like here is how they've actually labelled the knobs. I'm not sure whether that's going to come on camera, but this one here says CH for channel, and this one says vol for volume, obviously. That theme is also on the side for the PTT button, clearly stamped with the letters PTT, and then you've also got programmable buttons here at the top and bottom. On the other side, under this flap, we've got a standard K connector for a speaker microphone. It's also how we program the radio through that port. If we just look quickly back at the top and take the antenna off, we can see that it is a reverse SMA, as I call it. So the male is on the radio, the female is on the antenna. The same thing that we've seen out of China for some time. I have to say, I was kind of getting my hopes up, having recently looked at the Retevis Alance HA1 UV, linked up there, where that used the SMA connector, what I would consider to be the correct way around, with the female on the radio and the male on the antenna. No such luck here, but hey. One thing that I don't particularly like hardware-wise on this radio is that this SMA connector is a bit recessed. So if I were to grab a standard reverse SMA antenna, which I don't happen to have one to hand, but just trust me on this, it screws in and it feels like it's tightening, and it does tighten, but the center pin on the SMA connector is not making with the center pin on the socket on the antenna. Bit of an oversight, that, I think, and I don't quite know why. So unless you've got a sort of slimline antenna, so maybe something like a signal stick would work. The way I've got around it is to use a thin antenna like this Nagoya NA771, which has got really thin, but this is a male, and then just using a back-to-back adapter. That does work, that does yield good results. You can also grab a standard SMA connector, and that will also screw in really happily without any bother at all. The other thing that I'm not keen on hardware-wise is just the placement of these buttons and how cramped they are. I have on many occasions gone to try and hit this down arrow, this is a rocker in the middle here, and ended up pressing the number 2. It's simply just because the buttons are a bit close together and they're really quite flat as well. So it's not the end of the world, but it is worth noting. One thing I really do like though is if we just flick the radio off, the belt clip attaches to the main body of the radio itself and not onto the battery. Therefore, if you do decide to pick up a few extra batteries for this radio, you do not have to pick up separate belt clips as well. That stays on the radio. And if we just take the battery off the radio, which is a bit of a fiddle to do, if I'm honest. It kind of, you have to squeeze it in here, and yeah, you push it up from the bottom and then lift up the battery. And that belt clip is really quite strong. Getting it on the radio to start with was a bit of a bother. But the battery, it is a model Alance BL02, rated at 7.4 volts DC with 2900 milliamp hour capacity. Quite interestingly, if we look under here, the Alance H1 frequency range is amateur band. And there is if you press, I think it's and I'm doing this from memory, not looking at the manual, but if you press the PTT and the number 6 button, that can let you change the region. So mine was obviously delivered being for Europe, so the 2 meter band running from 144 megahertz to 146 megahertz. If I was to take this abroad, maybe I was taking it to the States, doing that combination, I can change that to a different IARU region, and that would enable it to transmit between 144 and 148, and also opens up the 77 side as well. So that's the radio. Let's quickly look at what else comes in the box. I haven't been in here since I opened it. The only other thing in here that I haven't got out already is just the desktop charger, and nice to see that it's USB Type-C. Of course, you don't necessarily need to use that desktop charger because the battery has obviously got a USB-C socket just there, so you can plug directly into the battery, which I like to see. The other things supplied with the radio, of course, was a manual. I have to say, a pretty good manual. I have referred to this on a number of occasions when I've had a few questions about how to use the radio. The manual has actually been really quite useful, so I can recommend that. And I was also supplied a programming cable. I was quite surprised that this is a pretty standard programming cable. Having previously always used the Anytone, the AT878, whatever it is, and that obviously has its own specific programming cable which can't be shared with any other radio. I was quite surprised to see that this is just a standard USB to serial sort of converter with the K-Connect on the end, which I think does yield a problem that we're going to talk about next with programming this radio. So this radio can be programmed from the front panel. It is kind of designed with amateur first as its sort of primary operating mode, if you want. Obviously, but acknowledge that DMR is a commercial standard. It has been adapted for amateur use, but fundamentally it is a commercial standard. So this, bearing the DMR mark, has to have all of those commercial features in it in order to put the DMR logo anywhere near the box or on the website. However, because you can program it from front panel, that makes it quite amateur friendly. But we're hams, we like experimenting, we like to delve into the CPS, or customer programming software, to write what's called a code plug, a configuration file for the radio, basically, that tells the radio what to do. And using this cable, I think, is limiting the data throughput to this radio. Programming frequencies, programming zones works absolutely fine. Changing what the functions of the buttons all do, that all works. However, this radio can support up to 500,000 DMR contacts, which is great because my previous Anytone, it's not the latest version of this radio, can only support up to 200,000, and the user database now is sitting at about 240,000, give or take. Obviously that's the time of recording. By the time that you watch this, maybe in a few months down the line, it might be significantly more than that. But right now, as I record it, it's about 240,000 contacts, which this radio, plenty of space for. However, transferring those contacts from the computer, from the programming software into this radio takes forever. And when I say forever, I mean in the region of about 2 hours. And no, I'm not making that up. And yes, I've compared notes with other people who've got the H1. And I think the reason for that is the USB serial converter in this cable. Retevis haven't confirmed that to me. That's my hunch. It might be that it is just a software bug and that the next firmware update or the next software update fixes that. But it is worth noting that if you do want to put the entire contacts database into this radio, it's going to take a while. On that, helpfully, the Retevis Alance website in their resource center does offer a contacts list which works in this radio flawlessly. If you download a list, and I have done this from radioid.net, there seem to be a few little bugs in terms of getting it to correctly find various contacts. I haven't delved too deep into what the issue there is, but I have let Retevis know on that as well, and they are looking into that. Let's talk about the programming software more generally, because when I first opened up the software, I was a little bit daunted by what it was asking me to do. But take your time, give yourself a few minutes just to familiarise yourself with what's going on. Actually, it's pretty straightforward. I like the fact that when you're in the channels bit of the software, you can export everything there into a CSV. You can then edit away in something like Excel, save that back to a CSV and import it back into the software, and that works brilliantly. Of course, with those channels, you then need to put them into zones. Again, you can do that by exporting to a CSV and doing it in Excel if you want to. I found it just easier to click a few buttons within the programming software itself. Similarly, you can do that for your talk groups. You can export those to CSV, update that, and import them. If you wanted to, you could download the entire database of Brandmeister talk groups if you wanted to. I chose not to with my radio and just put in the talk groups that I wanted, mostly because there are some talk groups on my local DMR repeater, which is on the DV Scotland or Phoenix network, which sort of clash with some of the talk groups of Brandmeister in terms of what their functionality is. So I found it easier just to maintain it and make the radio personal. And that's the thing, is that a DMR radio, or any radio ultimately, is for the individual. And yeah, we know that things like Icom radios do come with an entire sort of UK database of repeaters, which is great. Although, having from experience, the downloads from Icom are not particularly up to date, but make the radio yours, and that's certainly what I've done with this. Using the radio, well, let's hear it. Here is a little bit of a clip recorded just of this listening to the worldwide talk group on Brandmeister using my ZumSpot DMR hotspot in order to generate the RF, but let's have a listen to it.
Yankee Uniform 2 Delta Victor Delta. This is Delta Lima 4 Zulu Foxtrot Portable. Thank you for coming back to my call. The name here is Rainer.
And then for receive, all I can really do for DMR is show you my Anytone handheld receiving this radio, so we'll do that.
This is Mike 0 Juliet, Sierra X-Ray, M0JSX testing the transmit audio quality on the Retevis Alance H1, M0JSX.
And similarly in FM, we'll transmit into my All-Star node in its echo functionality, and we'll hear the audio come back through this radio. This is M0JSX testing the transmitted audio in analog on the Retevis Alance H1.
Your audio is perfect. Here is your playback.
This is M0JSX testing the transmitted audio in analog on the Retevis Alance H1.
I'll let you make your own judgments there. I've not heard what they sound like yet because I've not recorded them yet. But yeah, I haven't had any issues or reports of any bad audio using this radio at all. This radio also supports GPS and APRS, so not the sort of DPRS that we might associate with some DMR radios. This has genuine APRS. I am not sure whether my particular unit has the strongest of GPS receivers in it. It does seem to take quite a while to obtain a GPS lock, but when it does happily beacon APRS packets. Receiving them, I found if you have it in single band mode, so you can either have it in sort of a dual watch or single band, Have it in single band, listening to the APRS frequency, that seems to work pretty well. If you have it in a dual watch mode, less so. But mileage may vary. I have found that I don't really use the APRS on this radio, if I'm honest. But then I found similarly with the APRS on my Anytone handheld as well, didn't tend to use it very often. But it's nice to know that it's there should I want it. The rated output power of this radio is 6 watts. Now I don't have a calibrated test set in order to confirm that. Let's just take it at red that it's probably somewhere around 5 to 6 watts on both bands. And having seen some spectrum analysis of this radio, not this particular unit, but this radio more generally, it does seem to have pretty good filtering for both 2 meters and 77, so top marks to Retevis on that one. The radio is now in stock on the Retevis website. It is $179.99, which I have to say, for the amount of radio you're getting, does feel pretty reasonable. It is very much a competitor to the Anytone alternative, and I have to say I find it a little bit easier to use than the Anytone handheld that I've got. I'll of course preface that by saying that the Anytone handheld that I have is a number of years old now. If you fancy picking up one of these, there is an affiliate link in the description down below. It doesn't cost you any more. I just get a little bit of commission for pointing you in the direction of the radio, and it helps me run the channel and keep making entertaining and hopefully informative videos for you. If you've liked this video, there's a button specifically for that. If you haven't, there's another one that seems to work just fine too. And if you haven't already done so, please do click on that subscribe button and also click that notification button and you'll be told whenever I upload a new video. There's another video coming up over here that the algorithm thinks that you'll like next. Until next time, 73. Bye-bye.